Today's walk is in the walking programme as a 10 Tours challenge, but it should not be confused with the 10 Tours walks arranged each year on the northern part of Dartmoor.
People from the Isle of Man.
With us today are two of our walking friends from our holiday in the Isle of Man. The southern part of Dartmoor is ideal for visiting numerous tors and rocky pinnacles in a relatively short space of time. Whilst Charles gives the group the usual introductory talk, let's have a more detailed view.
I'm doing it this way around because...
From Hound Tor car park, our first tour is Hound Tor itself. After passing the medieval settlement, it's down into the next valley, over the Becker Brook and up past Smallacombe Rocks and on to Chinkwell Tor, Hay Tor and Saddle Tor. Crossing the road, it's then up to Ripon Tor, over to Top Tor, Pill Tor and Hollow Tor. Then it's on to Bonehill Rocks and up to Chinkwell Tor, and then down to Bell Tor before heading across Hound Tor Down and back to the car park at Hound Tor itself, a distance of approximately 9 miles. The first of our tours today is only a short distance away from the car park and is probably best well known for its inspiration of Conan Doyle's book The Hound of the Baskervilles. To say the least, it is impressive. It also has inspired other legends regarding Bowman's Nose, a pinnacle not far from this spot on Hayne Down. But that's a story for another video. This is one vantage point where you can pretty well see all the tours we'll be visiting today.
Explaining all the tours that we're going to visit today.
And Charles is just pointing them out. In the latter part of our walk, we'll be walking in between these two tours. Whilst the programme indicates a 10 tour challenge, we actually visit additional tours, which will be highlighted at the appropriate stage of our walk.
Tor Rocks.
I've touched on this settlement before. These remains of 4 13th century stone farmsteads occupy land originally farmed in the Bronze Age. This isolated Dartmoor hamlet was probably abandoned in the early 15th century.
Medieval village.
We very quickly come to our first additional tour, Greer Tor. Perhaps not the most well known on Dartmoor, but nevertheless a tour to be counted. Having passed the medieval settlement, we now follow the path up the rise, through a gate and into what I term as the Becky Brook Valley. This is one of the most picturesque parts of the walk today. The route down to the bottom of the valley and the Becker Brook is steep and can be slippery, but today it's fine. The views towards Black Hill and Smallacombe Rocks on the other side of the valley are excellent. The Becker or Becky Brook was first recorded in 1797 as the Little River Becky. It is only a few miles long and is probably best well known for Becky Falls, which it tumbles down over. There is now a well-worn rocky pathway through an old wooded area that looks like it has come directly out of a scene from Lord of the Rings. But we're not in it for long before coming out into the open again, where we meet a group of cyclists on a 35-mile ride over the moors, each to their own.
Other people on the moor today?
From here is a relatively steep climb up to Smallacombe Rocks. This doesn't count today as one of the visited tours, but this is due to name only. From all other aspects, it looks and it feels like a tour.
Small piece of wide open grass pathway before we actually hit the normal stony pathway again in a minute.
The higher we get, the better the views become. Of course, the weather today is pretty well perfect.
There's our pathway. Did it?
We make a number of stops. I like to think it's because of the views, which in part it is. But it's a steep climb, and resting now and again to get your breath back is a must.
Smallacombe Rocks.
I for one am glad to reach the top of this climb. The views from the top, though, are well worth the effort involved.
In a hurry still? This is lovely. What a panoramic view that is. All right, mate. Chinkwell Tor and the quarry below it.
If you look closely, the route of the granite railway is visible from the quarry below Chinkwell Tor. This spur quickly joins the main railway on its 10-mile journey to the Stover Canal.
They've got a gym corner up there on the top of Holwell Lawn.
The quarry below Chinkwell Tor is one of two on Dartmoor. The other one is below Tor Rocks, which is probably the best well known.
Smallacombe Rocks. Not so pretty as you two. Deceptively steep, this.
We've once more got another steep climb to the top of Chinkwell Tor.
Holwell Tor.
This is a great spot to have a break, but it's only for a short while, as we have our next destination in sight, Tor Rocks. Sitting here, I like to look around and see the various tors and rocky outcrops. Some I can easily recognise, others are more difficult, either because you're seeing them from a different perspective, or just I can't remember their names. A sign of getting older, perhaps. There are always questions about the tours and the places to be visited and where our route will take us. Charles is a knowledgeable leader and endeavours to give the answers. Tor Rocks are no doubt the best well-known and probably one of the most frequently visited tours on Dartmoor. The rocks have had many names, which are on screen. In the 19th century, A metal handrail was fixed to part of the Tor and steps were cut for people to walk up more easily. But this was removed in the 1960s due to rusting. This particular Tor is unnamed, but it lies between Hound Tor Rocks and Saddle Tor and could have been part of the quarries, but information is very vague. Our next Tor is Saddle Tor, again a very popular and well-visited part of Dartmoor. I've already remarked about myths and legends on Dartmoor. Saddle Tor is no exception. This one is known as the Phantom Black Pony of Saddle Tor. It is said that galloping hooves can be heard in the far distance, which gradually get louder and louder to the point where the ground starts to shake and you think you're going to be trampled to death. Then as quickly as it starts, the noise disappears.
That's our next Tor, which is Ripon Tor.
Whether you believe or not believe in these myths, it doesn't really matter. It all adds up to the mystical aura of the moorland. And if you're on your own in poor visibility one day, and you do hear unexpected sounds, it does give you something to think about. We're reminded again that the moor is a wild place and unforgiving in its nature.
It's quite a steady climb up to the Ripon Tor. Not too bad at all. Different angle of Saddle Tor.
The route up to Ripon Tor at this time of the year is fairly straightforward, being recognisable as a pathway. Later on in the year, as the bracken grows, it gets a little more difficult to find. There's a gate in the dividing wall about 2/3 of the way up. Just head for that. This is the highest Tor on our walk,
Ripon Tor.
but generally speaking, there's no more than about a 70-metre difference in height on all the Tors we visit today.
There's a cairn on top of Ripon Tor.
There are several cairns at the top of Ripon Tor, 5 in all. The largest is a massive construction, one of the largest on Dartmoor, and has an OS trig station
what does it say?
at its centre.
What, doesn't it?
But I think once you have seen the cairns,
Right on
the
the top
most
of Ripon.
impressive part of being at the top of this Tor is the views it commands of the surrounding countryside. In front of us, and more or less north, is Hemsworthy Gate, a road junction. More to the left of us is Top Tor and Pill Tor, our next 2 Tors on our route.
Hemsworthy Gate. Our next Tor is Top Tor.
It tends to be quite boggy on the lower part of the route from Hemsworthy Gate to Top Tor. You just have to pick your way through it.
Part of Top Tor.
The lower pinnacles of Top Tor are soon within reach, but we move on to the main part of the Tor itself, and it's time for a lunch break. In front of us, and our next destination after lunch, is Pill Tor. We're just over halfway through this 10 tour challenge, but I think perhaps we've got the hardest tour to climb later. Pill Tor is a lot larger than perhaps first envisaged, consisting of 2 sets of large granite pinnacles. But ours is a fleeting visit today, as we're now on our way to Hollow Tor, perhaps one of the most least visited tours of Dartmoor.
You shouldn't be so good looking.
Hollow Tor is quite small compared to other tours on Dartmoor, and tucked away against the moorland landscape. It can easily be missed as you don't see the Tor itself until you're almost upon it.
This is somewhere I've not been before, Hollow Tor. Right in the middle of all the tours is an area of really rich green grass.
The granite clitter also doesn't look natural, almost as though it has been collected and been made into a rockery. Perhaps my imagination is running away with me.
Well, that's all right. I'll get out of the way.
A different perspective on this moorland village.
Hamel down. Now making our way to Bone Hill Rocks. Bone Hill Rocks. Behind it is Tor, and above it is Chinkwell, right at the top there.
Again, purely because of the name, Bone Hill Rocks doesn't count as one of the tours visited today. It nevertheless is impressive, and because of the close proximity of the road, gets visited quite a lot by rock climbers and families.
We've certainly got a cracking day for all this. The gorse is lovely. That's Tor up there. We're coming back down the other side later. Oh, look at this gorse here. Hawthorn blossom. Beautiful. Hamel down. Doesn't it look fantastic?
We've joined a farm trackway for about a quarter of a mile.
There's Honeybag Tor, and we're going to go to the right of that, up between, and then follow on up to Chinkwell.
Before turning off and heading to what is probably the steepest part of our walk today, up to Honeybag and Chinkwell Tors. The route upwards is easy enough to follow, and after a short drink stop, we start the ascent.
It certainly is a steep one, this. Here they come. Hard going. There's people up there.
Honeybag Tor, or as close as it gets, and another tour to add to the challenge. Once we reach about halfway up the climb, there is a short level stretch.
Very good, Pete. I bet you can't keep that all the way up.
Before the pathway rises again up to Chinkwell Tor.
Sure. The views towards Honeybag Tor are simply amazing. Look at that. Wonderful. Looking back at Honeybag Tor. Coming up to the top of Chinkwell Tor. Fantastic.
As with other tours we visited today, Chinkwell has a cairn at the top. In fact, it has two cairns,
Here.
which people just have to make that little bit higher by adding additional stones. It's almost like a drug. After reaching the top of this tour, it's time to have a short break and enjoy our surroundings.
In the far distance there we can see Tor. The next part of Chinkwell.
The summit of Chinkwell Tor is larger than it looks, and it's quite spread
That's
out.
for my little tripod.
On a day like today, the views from Chinkwell Tor towards Tor Rocks are outstanding. It's not often it's as good as this, so we should make the most of it, and we do. Our route now leads in a downward direction, and we'll shortly be reaching the last tour of today's walk, Bell Tor.
There's Bell Tor. The view of Bone Hill Rocks.
We're now crossing part of Bone Hill Down, gradually making our way to Hound Tor Down and Hound Tor Car Park where we started. I always like to look back and see where we've been. You can see Bell Tor on the left and how spread out Chinkwell Tor is. The rocks we can see in front of us on the map are unnamed. They may have local names, but none I'm aware of.
Shortly coming up to the road. I don't think we're going over Holwell Down today. We're going to skirt round it. Remnants of the Gymkhana. A lot of people are starting to move out now.
The Gymkhana on Holwell Lawn that I referred to earlier seems to be coming to an end, and whether they come by horse box or under their own steam, competitors are on the way home.
Well, we're almost back to where we started. What a lovely walk this has been. Someone needs a bit of a help as to which way to go. I think Charles has just given them some advice.
We've almost come to the end of our 10 Tours challenge. I've personally enjoyed this walk very much, and we have in fact visited 12 tours and other rock formations as well. Not a bad day's walking. I really hope you've enjoyed being with us. See you next time.